What's up, everybody? It's Andy from Tap FinTech and Cyberfrogs. Today, we're going to be looking at the markets. I haven't looked at them since last week. I haven't been actively really trading outside of the stuff I talked about throughout the courses last week. I did do the BTC short, but I haven't really looked at the market. So today is a fun, fresh take. If this is your first time joining, you know that I'm not a financial advisor. This is not financial advice. This is simply me as a trader using our tool known as Thor at taptrade.io to help myself navigate the markets. Just another fun sort of introductory thing. I'm really a pretty big boomer trader. I'm not like the most risk-on individual. You'll generally see this through my own lens. And a lot of the times that's just like a risk-off trader. I like making money. I don't like taking risk at this point, but we'll do a little bit of both of it. I will try and step out on my own skin, as it were, and talk about how you can use Thor regardless of what type of trader you are, because there is something here for everyone. If you're an active day trader, if you are a macro trader, if you are risk on, if you are risk off, it doesn't really matter. Bear market, bull market, it's always the Thor market, and we can help you navigate and be on the right side of probability. The first place that I always start anything, regardless of if this is your first time joining or if you've been here 1,000 times, is just by looking at the data. You can do so at taptrade.io/Thor, and that's where we have all of our available data for the previous 30 days and the cumulative total win rate on a 1 to 1.5 risk to reward calculation on the entirety of our on-chain tracked signals. We don't provide historical information on our Forex or stock signals. However, you can still have access to those via the Ask Thor system, and they do still maintain the average 70% cumulative win total. However, we don't have those tracked. The only signals that we track are the cryptocurrencies that are available through our subscription model. Those are ones that our users are actively using. Those are ones that go into a database that we're cataloging and calculating at the end of every month to do the P&L or to do the risk to reward calculations to know if it is a win or a loss. And that is what we are presenting. We really want to come from a place of transparency, and so that is the most transparent data we can provide right now, and that's where you'll see me primarily focusing on. But as I said, Thor does the same thing it does on cryptocurrencies as it does on stocks. We do have a sub-community within our Discord specifically focused on stock trading, the Boomer Stonks Club as well. So, like I said, a little something here for everyone. And for me personally, the first place I like to start, I want to see how we've been trading. This isn't meant to pat myself on the back. And the numbers are still pretty consistent with where they've been over the last few weeks. Cardano being one of the highest rated that we have in terms of hit rates, 82%. That's insane. Just scroll down. BNB at 81 this month, also insane. Bitcoin 72, crazy. ETH at 85.5. That's what you call bonkers right there. So when I'm looking at these numbers, it's 85.5% of the signals that have hit the entry zone have at least hit the take profit on a 1 to 1.5 calculation. This doesn't account for invalidated signals, meaning that it was never hit into the entry range. We didn't touch into there, whatever it is. And I just realized I got to share my screen for the Discord homies. Not bad, y'all. There we go. All right. Everybody's back together again. So 85.5% on ETH is absolutely bonkers. I do have a preference to signals that have a higher hit rate, and that's just a part of what I do personally. You can manage a profitable trader is someone who maintains over a 50% win rate, right? If you can win 51% of the time, you're theoretically making money comparatively to losing money 51% of the time. I don't even like being that close to that 50-50 threshold. If something doesn't trade over a 60% win rate, I generally gravitate towards other things. And especially when you have numbers looking at you in the face like we do here, a 75% cumulative win rate on Ethereum, that gives me the confidence I need as a trader to say, hey, this algorithm performs, traditionally and historically really well on these assets, especially. I want to focus primarily on that. And that's a lot of how my own personal strategy has shifted over time. Why would I stray away from something that has a 75% win rate to go and chase something that has a 55% win rate? You know, you can still be, it's great that that's the complicated choice. You know, it's great that that's, you know, the position that you can be in as a Thor user is to say, what side of probability do I win on? And I say the one that wins more, obviously. But still, that's a really great position to start off from in terms of a trader. Do I want to take something that's 55%? Do I want to take something that's 69.6%? You know, right on, 70%. Wild. With proper risk management, with proper portfolio allocation to trades, with just, you know, properly managing your trading account, 70% is a sledgehammer when it comes to your tool belt. That is insanity. So, like I said, it's definitely adjusted my own personal take on how I trade and everything like that. And I think eventually, for anyone who's strictly here for dollars and cents, trying to just trade profitably, that's what we look for. Now, I am just scrolling through legitimately. This is a fun one too, Hype. We did just release our automated trading vault on Hype. I was just talking about this before we started recording. If you trade profitably on Hyperliquid, you're part of a very small group of traders on that platform that does. The average P&L is negative $2,600 a month, and there are only around 17% of the active traders are profitable traders on Hyperliquid. We are happy that our automated vault can help people find a way to profitable trading over there, or at least a risk-managed way to trade or manage a portion of their account. Doesn't have to be everything, but for me, it's how I view my long-term savings account. Straight up. Thor manages an automated vault for me using these signals that we're looking being around, you know, a relatively, like I said, 70, I think it's 68.8% cumulatively right now. So roughly 70%. It ebbs and flows a little bit. Thor can automate all that for me in the Hyperliquid vault. So for me personally, my set it and forget it funny money has gone primarily to just savings over there. I am managing my spot bags, which still primarily are weighted as Bitcoin, Solana, and JITO, still JTO, and I will look at that a little bit. But a lot of like just the active, I want to make more USDC. A lot of that's gone into the Hyperliquid vault for me. It's risk off. It doesn't cost me any brain power. I can just set it and forget it. But I still love trading, and I still want to trade. And I have a different risk tolerance personally than the Hyperliquid vault may have. And same for you. So if you're looking to learn how to do this within your own context of like your own strategy, the manual signals are, I don't want to say unbeatable, but they're pretty effing OP overall. So Litecoin has always been a big winner for us too. Pith at 68% this month. That's great. Optimism at 71% this month. That's awesome. Rune at 79%. WTF, bro. Yeah, wow. 4-hour Rune signals have been hitting like a sledgehammer. 85%. That's awesome. I had largely stopped trading Rune after their big, you know, whoopsie-daisies. I don't know what you want to call it. But they tried to over-incentivize people via just like unrealistic APY. And the whole theory of their chain sort of got compromised. So it went damn close to zero from a bit of an internal F-up. Say at 71%, that's awesome. SHIB 71. Sol BTC. If you're trading, here's the ADD take of all this today. Maybe we get a long class today. You can either trade against US dollar or you can trade against Bitcoin. On most of the platforms, you know, large centralized exchanges even, they offer Bitcoin as a base denominator of what you're trading against. The theory here is like, hey man, I don't really care about the cash value as it were. I want to make more Bitcoin. I want to maintain exposure to the crypto markets in a crypto on sense. I want to trade instead of against USD, or I'm selling some of my assets to go into dollar. I want to sell it for Bitcoin, or I want to use my Bitcoin to buy this other asset. For me, Solana Bitcoin scratches both of my fucking preferences. I like both of those assets. For me, those are both big macro long-term holds. For us to have a 96.4% win rate on the two assets that I primarily trade is insanity. I can say I have my spot Bitcoin. This signal tells me it's the right time to swap this Bitcoin for Solana, and 96% of the time it's right. The ultimate takeaway from intra-crypto trades is that you walk away with more crypto on some level. You say, hey man, I'm going to use this Bitcoin valued at X dollars to buy Solana currently valued at Y dollars. This is, historically speaking, 96% of the time, the right time to make that swap. And when the take profit levels happen, when they get to that Thor recommended take profit level 1, 2, or 3, I am taking whatever I swapped for and swapping it back to my original asset, which is maybe valued at Z at this price. When you make that swap, you walk away with, if it was Bitcoin, more Bitcoin than you started with, or more Solana than you started with. And for traders or macro long-term holders, Bitcoin specifically is the one thing I want more of. I don't care what price. I don't care when I get it. I don't care how I get it. There's some exceptions. But from a trading perspective, I usually will roll a lot of my profits into Bitcoin anyways, you know? And we just talked about this situation last week. We talked about something that we're going to revisit today, and hopefully it has relevancy to your own personal trading, you know, strategy and or like current execution, because it fucking hit really well. Surprise, surprise. So just rounding out this overview, XRP Bitcoin 92%, Solana Bitcoin 93%. If you're a Bitcoin maxi and you want to make more Bitcoin, trading using Thor is a really great way for you to stack your sats too. That's a fucking huge thing. Whew, I don't know if this can go on YouTube. We need to edit some of this. My bad. So, cool. This is not like a shill, pat myself on the back. This is me legitimately going through and honestly seeing new information I hadn't seen. 68% on hype. That's wild. That's awesome. ETH Bitcoin and all Bitcoin base pairs. Insane. Great. Right on. And then Bitcoin USD 72%. All right. So I already logged in. I hope I logged in, because if not, I have to go get my ledger. If you'd like to log in for the first time, if this is your first time joining and you've never used Thor anything, I really encourage you to use our Ask Thor system. Ask Thor is a Solana-based protocol that you can go in and ask for trading signals on stocks, Forex, all of our available cryptocurrencies, which is about 50 of the main cryptocurrencies, and any SPL token, any meme coin that lives on Solana, anything with the Solana token address. It's a pay-per-request system. You don't have to go out and spend a ton of money to see if what we're talking about is true. You can spend $5 and you can get 48-hour access to Thor, which is the only tool I personally use for my trading profile. And regardless of who or where you come from or what you do, it's a huge sledgehammer of a tool in your belt. So I'm already logged in. If you're not, your interface will look a little bit different. Ask Thor, you have to go in, and there's a video on that you can find on our YouTube. But for me, I own a bunch of our NFTs, and I have what we have as our subscription model to Thor. And that is what this looks like. So I am going to bounce around a little bit, but I'm going to start with Papa Bitcoin. I knew from last week that we'd hit a short. We hit a short range. I think it was like 94 or something like that. Okay, but above, yeah, 97, 96. And look at that. Chef's kiss. Beautiful, big old fair value gap that we printed on that pump right there. What did we hit down to? 74. You know, around the fair value that people were calling for, you know, big macro. We're zoomed out. We're on the 1 day right now. You know, we're just looking at a lot of time here. November to April, just right here. Now, obviously to May. Wild. Lots of emotions. People still think we can get down to like 72. Maybe we can, maybe we can't. 68. I don't really care what people say. I care what Thor says. And Thor told me to hedge, personally, my Bitcoin position about 10% at 97 to 96. And I did. And now I'm looking at profit, which I like. I'm a big TP1 maxi. it's like I said, 1-day signals, super noisy. Generally where I'll put a lot more capital, but I'll be like so much more patient with. You can't force 1-day signals. You need to give them room to breathe. This is a 9% trading delta right here. So on a 1-to-1 risk to reward, you're saying you're willing to lose up to 9% of the trade to make 9%. On a 1-to-1.5, you're willing to lose like 7 point something percent, 7.5, whatever it is, to 9. I'm not a mathematician. That's what Thor does for me. So like if I say dumb math and you want to be like, oh, this guy doesn't know what he's talking about, you're right. I don't math. I use this thing called Thor. It maths for me completely. But from just a general risk management solution, like system, I know that like a 1-to-2 risk to reward, I'm willing to lose about 5% in order to make 9. You have to know your risk to reward before you go into any trade. This is no different. This short is no different. I talked about theoretically all of the ways you could approach this, depending on what your own personal situation was. It will be different for every single person you talk to. Ask 10 people, get 10 opinions sort of thing. But for us, we knew, mathematically speaking, this was either a good place to sell some of your Bitcoin in expectations of buying 9 to 15% lower, to hedge some of your Bitcoin if you wanted to not sell your spot, but obviously benefit from the short, or to just take a short if you're a perps trader and giving yourself a lot of room to breathe. I'm just looking at this chart and I'm not effing surprised that we're having a small pullback right now. I still see that the fair value gap, we're right here for our first take profit. That fills the fair value gap all the way down to pretty much that little mid-range right here. I'm a big take profit one, Maxi. If I just made 9% on a trade, I'm happy, and I'm not going to sit around crying about the 5% that I could have risked it more for. Take your 9%. That's good. That's a good ass trade. So if and when we get here, let's just say, mathematically speaking, we have a 0% chance. Oh shit. 52.2% chance currently. Oh, this is a 1-day signal. Excuse me. 72.2% chance that this is going to be a winning trade. I have my risk to reward set. I did a 1-to-1.5. I have my stop loss managed. I have trailing stops and trailing take profits in place. All things are going according to plan so far. Everything's good. Everything's Gucci. I'm happy. I'm comfy. We see what Bitcoin is at today. Just so y'all know, general timestamp, Bitcoin is trading at approximately 93.8 right now. Obviously, CoinMarketCap is a bit of a shit, like current pricing. It's not like active trading and stuff like that, but decent just like trigger for the price. All right. So I'm not surprised that we have a pullback. Now, I'm in a trade. I did the thing. I planned my trade. I'm trading my plan. I want to see if anything changes. Is there more information that would require me to adjust my plan so far? And you can do that by, if we had them, zooming in, checking shorter time frames, seeing what was more of a possibility on shorter time frames does give you a bit of an edge on these big macro trades. It can be hard because patience is the hardest thing for you to master. It's not these signals. These signals fucking work. It's you. You're the, I don't want to say problem, but you're the hardest part of all of this is maintaining your emotions. If you can't make that plan and just stick to it, trading might not be for you. This is designed, these signals are meant to help you circumvent that innate human response of emotion. We don't want that. So for me, I'm good. I'm not going to take profit right now. My trade's in profit right on. I didn't over leverage it. I did about a 10% hedge, which is fairly aggressive. And if you own a lot of Bitcoin, a 10% hedge can be a lot of money. If you own $1 million in Bitcoin, a 10% hedge is a big effing trade. If you own 10K, Bitcoin, a 10% hedge is still 1K, relatively a big amount. Positioning, sizing, the way that you trade, your own strategy, your own integration of Thor signals into your account is always going to be based around what kind of account are you trading. I talked to some guys the other day, and they trade smaller accounts. They can be more risk on, right? When you get to a point where you're managing $500,000, your risk tolerances are changed. If you're trading, $500, you may be risk on, and that's totally cool. You're leveraging, you're finding your come up, I'm not going to knock that. I'm not going to be the guy who sits around and looks down at leverage. I get that it's there for a reason. What I'm saying is that it's a good idea for your plan, for your strategy, and for who you are as a trader to evolve alongside your account size. And that's a really natural progression. So if you're here and you're hungry and you're in the trenches trading, trying to really come up, I'm there to support you. You don't want to take one-day signals. That is not where your bread and butter comes from. One-day signals are meant to set it and forget it. Long-term, risk set, plan set, hands off, I'm good. Not going in and saying, bro, well, you said a 72% win rate. I'm going to put a 20x on it because that seems like smart. You can do that, but if it goes anywhere past, your threshold for your stop loss, you're going to get stopped out. You're going to get stop hunted. You're going to get wrecked. So one-day signals, not really meant for trench traders, in my opinion. But for me, it's like what I live on. 1 day, 4 hour. Now, I am doing a little bit more active trading myself since I have parked a lot of my macro capital into the vault. I am doing more 15-minute and 1 hour signals, and we'll cover that soon too. So just switching gears, we know Papa Bitcoin's in a bit of a retrace. We know that a 9% to a 15% short is currently on the table right now. Y'all know that will have an impact on every other currency, but let's just see. We haven't had an alt season yet. Everyone can tell me I've likely been in crypto longer, and it's not meant to be a big brag or anything like that. It's just that after this amount of time in crypto, I know that nothing is ever certain, and that the 4-year cycle as we know it may be done. Alt season, quote unquote, may really look different. It may be different, but I still personally don't think that we've had relief for some of the cryptocurrencies that do need to print higher highs. Ethereum, for one. There's still a lot on the table in terms of the bull market's not over. I'm not saying that we're in print 20% candles every day for 5 days and that these blah, blah, blahs are going to go to whatever. We could have had a lot of that quote unquote gambling with just the meme season that just happened. But I don't think that that's personally my bias is that we have not seen the end or even the beginning really of an alt season. And I do think that we get a little bit of something. I think Ethereum needs to print a higher high. That's my own personal bias showing. I'm a Solana maxi. I was shitting on ETH back in the day as a Bitcoin maxi. It doesn't matter. That's my own bias. Take it or leave it. Tell me I'm dumb, disagree with me, don't care. I'll still trade using Thor signals to either confirm or deny that. So for me, Solana, I'm still targeting this right here, but I've said anything I buy under $100 goes about 70% of it at these ranges right here. That's still my plan. Nothing invalidates it. Same shit on the Solana signals. I don't want to be repetitious, but if you want to know what I sort of trade or what my overall plan is, start coming to the classes. We post these 24 hours after we record them live in our Discord. And you can join our Telegram too, which we just had our first person join from our YouTube channel to our Telegram. Shout out. Also, thanks. So Solana on the 4 hour. This is when it can get a little bit junky in your brain. And I think just being straight with you as a trader, it's also a lot more information to process when you have a bunch of signals stacked on top of each other, especially when they're on both sides, long and short. Thankfully, we just have longs. let me just go ahead and look back. So we got 160 and then 190 on the radar. It's invalid at 95. That's where we know our support is. So we have invalid at 157, invalid at 153. I already forgot. So that does, this signal so far invalidates all of these 4-hour signals, but hitting entry point on the 4-hour signals does not invalidate the 1 day. Can you see the dots? You're starting to connect. Again, it doesn't matter what asset, it doesn't matter anything. This is just you painting a picture of possibilities. Whew, that's a good catchphrase with Thor. So 1 day, not invalidated by the 4-hour signals. 4-hour signals are invalidated by the 1 day. What does that mean? That we can hit even down to that lowest 120 signal that we just saw, and 160 is still mathematically probable. If you think that the 160 is still mathematically probable, entry at 120 is probably a pretty decent trade to take. I'm just working through the start of it and how I start putting it together using the invalidation levels, using the entries and all that good shit, and then navigating between the time frames. So we have pretty much one stacked range right here, which you can also see visualized. Whoop. So we got 139 to 136. We got 127, let's just call it, and then 120. You got 4 signals. This is when it's fun and hard to be a trader. How I trade this is going to be entirely different. I will just DCA in to those levels, but I won't do it until I get down here. I already bought a lot of Solana under $100. I bought a lot more at 8. You know, I'm good at 140. I'm not taking profit on my stuff, although that's around where the original take profits were for additional 1 day long. I'm holding out for that 160. Call me crazy. I'm not going to sell any here because I don't really care. I mean, that's the real fundamental takeaway from it is like, for me, I just don't, I'm not trying to manage my Solana all that hard. I got it liquid staked. I'm good. No big deal. I won't add to this range, but if you're looking to get into Solana, this is the first range that you would DCA in at. You would want to look at the profit range that's on the table, and you would want to ask yourself, hey man, do I want to take this trade for a 4% return, knowing full well that there are 2 additional levels below it that, 1, have a fatter trading delta, and 2, could really F up my entry point. As a perpetual trader, I'm probably not going to do anything other than build like a position. You can DCA in at these ranges. If you get to where you're taking profit, right on. Hell yeah. If you get to where you're entering at these positions, you've now effectively, you know, managed your risk slightly, and at the same point, averaged in your entry point. When you go in and you see this, let's just eliminate this and call that 1, 2, and 3. You got 3 ranges effectively right here. How you trade that is going to be different than how I trade it, but you can go into each one of these and view them all as individual signals in and of themselves. You can set very specific risk to reward calculations. Say you want to do a 1 to 2 on this one right here. You can do that and say, put a 2.5% stop loss. Now, let's just say hypothetically that your stop loss gets triggered because you set a 2.5% stop loss because you took a 1 to 2 risk to reward. What's your backup plan going to be? What's your follow-up? Is that 2%? No, there's a lot more down draw. You can say, all right, I took the loss on that. Now, hypothetically speaking, the worst case scenario is that they come, they hit your stop loss, and then it pumps right back up to take profit, right? Okay, bummer. Ouch, that happens. Maybe next time I'll do a 1 to 1 or a 1 to 1.5. Inversely, let's say, hey, you know, my stop loss was triggered. I did a 1 to 2. I took a 2.5% loss on the trade. But I know now that this and even this is still on the table. Whatever capital you had allocated to that trade, you could reallocate. You could add to it. You could hold out for the lower signal. And that's all up to you. But personally, knowing that there are big ranges right below where we're trading at, you have to be mindful of that. However you set it up. I wouldn't put my stop loss on a trade like this, and I haven't worked the math or anything like that, but I know 10% is like $13 down. So we're looking at 750. That's around a 5 to 6% drawdown or something like that. So if you did a 1-to-1, I took, Andy told me, be responsible. I'm not telling you anything. I'm, personally talking about myself. But if you set your risk on this, you set the bottom range, which is what I would personally do right here. I would set my range for like that number down to here. I would do a tight stop loss, probably a 1-to-2, because I know that this is looming right there around where a 1-to-1 R&R would be. And if we get down here, I'll reopen that same position with the reduced amount of capital. It mitigates the 2.5 that we took for a stop loss. For me, it gives me a healthier trading delta to make back up some of the money, although that's already mitigated with your entry price. And an 8 to 12% return on a trade is great. I'm going to make money on that trade. Even if I took a 2.5% loss on this trade right here, I will make it up if theoretically we get to this entry range, even the top of that range, and we get to take profit 1 on it. That's a really good plan. It's a bit complicated, I'd say. I don't want to say complicated, but it's more on the intermediate level. You're looking at a lot of different information here in order to get your takeaway and to make your plan, but the plan and the outcome doesn't change. You got your plan, you got your stop losses, you got your risk, you got everything you're willing to go through and what you're willing to not go through as a trader, and that level of confidence is what you need to be profitable. It's not the signals. It's your confidence to be able to execute your plan as you have spent time designing it. So, same to be said. Once we get down here, let's just say it's a effing red day. Oh my gosh. Oh, everything's going to zero. If and when you hit your stop loss on this, you know where you're at. You lost 2.5% on that trade. You know that you can re-enter right here. You know that now that you're in this range, that there's an 8% trading delta, which is essentially up to that point right there. And what do you want to do? Do you want to just take the treen? That's 3 different words mixed up together. Do you want to cleanly take the trade? Cool. Go ahead and recalculate your R&R. You know that you've had a small diminishment in your capital, right? And this, for anybody who's like actively day trading and doing leverage and shit like this, is probably boring the F out of you. This is where you'll get to when you got 20,000. Let's just say you're managing 20,000. You don't gamble with 20,000 bucks. You trade 20,000 bucks. You gamble with $100. You gamble with $1,000 maybe. You don't gamble with 20. You definitely don't gamble with 100. Not most of us, at least. Not traders. This is why this boring AF information is what literally can change your life. Do what you got to do in the trenches to get to where you need to be financially. But when you become a trader, when you want to become a trader, I think that this process is a really helpful place to start on that journey too, when you transition. So you're here, you've lost a little money, your stop loss hit, you're entered back into the trade. All right, I want to make my 8%. I'm still going to take a 1-to-2. Most likely. So I'm willing to lose 4% on this trade after having lost 2.5% on this trade. Now, math for me, somebody. You know what is 4%? Oh, shoot. Well, I don't want to do that live. I'm not going to math, but I'll have a calculator next time. Make sure that the math makes sense. If you set too aggressive of a stop loss here, are you going to wreck yourself if you get down here? Are you able to do a 1-to-2? I don't know how the math works out. I would need to do that. But if my 4% loss was at 120.75, I probably wouldn't take the loss. I'd just average in again right here. I would start looking in this situation specifically I've exited this. These are invalidated. We've already fallen through them. I had my first entry right here. I have my second entry right here. If it were me trading, I would likely, let me just make sure, that take profit 1 is above the entry range on this. So if I average back down in on here, I will, theoretically, if we get to take profit 1, still be in a winning trade regardless of what the entry was here, or if I averaged back in here. I mean, that's what I would do. It's hard to conceptually go through and be like, specifically, this is blah, 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 this is what you should do, because I got a really hardcore lens on how I look at things. And if you have questions on how to implement Thor's strategy into your own trading account, you can go to taptrade.io, join our Telegram, where we're building our community over there. And you can also join our Discord, which has an established community via our NFTs, and they're actively trading in there every day, including these classes being live traded and then hanging out after. That was a really long walkthrough on Solana. Conceptually, I think it's very important to see how people walk through the bigger macro timeframes. We started at the 1 day. We haven't even gotten to the 1 hour. Even if you are a day trader, even if you are grinding it out in the trenches, you need to know what's on the table from a macro perspective. Maybe you're sitting here telling me right now, Andy, I'm going to long the F out of 144 because of blah, blah, blah. Who knows? Whatever. I'm like, hey, that's cool, bro. But like 139 ain't that much further down. We could at least kiss it. I'd have some capital left over. Let's see if the 1 hour gives me anything. You know, we're definitely in day trading territory, but still for people hardcore trench mode, not even satiating it. And look, you have the same 1 hour signal as we had on the 4 hour. I'm going to wait. I would wait for this. Is it invalidated by this long or this short? Excuse me. No. So it is entirely possible that we go and kiss 140 before we go down to 139, which fulfills that 4 hour signal, which starts in motion my big personal macro plan, you know, hypothetically, excuse me. And now you can see how the signals really work together to paint a big ass picture. One that you should know before you start taking a 15-minute signal, regardless of who you are, where you're from, whatever. You don't have to go into it as, you know, extensively or make a plan or anything like that, but you need that as a fundamental approach to any day trading you're doing. You got to understand the macros, and you do that with the 1 hour and the 4 hour and 1 day signals. So that's Solana. That's Bitcoin. Let me just take a quick look real quick. If anyone has any questions, I will quickly look into the chat. I'm going to move this over here. And if you don't mind being recorded, you guys can ask questions. Hop in, ask questions, whatever. I think it's great to see people on YouTube and wherever they see these videos know that I'm not just talking to myself. It's not a phantom group. But yeah, I think that really covers where I'm at for Bitcoin and Solana specifically. Bitcoin is my macro indicator on markets overall, especially with Bitcoin dominance still just being shoved down our throats. You know, we're at 64 or whatever Bitcoin dominance. Let me just look. I'm never going to do that again. Oh my God. Yeah, so CoinMarketCap's cool because it does give you a lot of these like news, social cues and stuff like that. I take them all with a grain of salt other than Bitcoin dominance. All of the altcoin season and stuff like that. It's just a bullshit approximation. Bitcoin dominance at 63% right now. It's wild. You know, that's been crushing it. From a fun, just take a stab at what's going on in the markets. A lot of people have been saying that this is largely an institutional based rally, largely centered around store of value, Bitcoin leading the charge on that front. As we've seen additional ETFs roll out and everything like that, obviously there's still a radar for altcoins and everything like that. I love Bitcoin. I still think that there are a lot of undervalued altcoins right now. And with that, I'm going to look at Jito, and then we're going to wrap it up. That's what she said.
Yo, Andy, there are some sexy ETH calls out 1750 to 1718.
Oh, let's look at that real quick. I'm gonna look at Jito and then I'll look at ETH and then that sounds fun. Thanks, Lemon. See, for those of you listening, it's not a phantom community. All right, so Jito, this is the same boring, oh my god, position we've been in for a long time. They've had unlocks happen. I think that their unlocks are something like 1.6% of the supply every time they have an unlock, so it's pretty drastic. Early investors are definitely taking profit still. Yada, 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 market uncertainty, blah, blah, blah. 2.2 to 2.6 is still my target for selling most of my Jito. And that is where I'm going to start exiting personally my position. I still think, even if you're just a day trader, all of these levels on Jito from 2.2 to 2.6 are definitely worth keeping your eyes on. All of y'all have a single frog in here. You get access to Jito and Solana signals. Jito signals have been boring right now, but that 2 to 2.6 is that fat range I'm looking at to actually start shorting Jito. I would really pay attention to those ranges and specifically these profit ranges. You have a 13 to 25%. Wild, bonkers, insanity. On the 1 hour, nothing on that, nothing on the 1 day. So, boo, hiss. I really don't think we get down to 67 cents, although I didn't think we'd push as far as we have maintained, but we'll see. I'm going to go look at ETH now. ETH is one of those, like, I don't believe you sort of signals for us. Where were we at? 75%. Yeah. Hey, y'all, we don't really give a shit. You can, you know, like, believe us or don't. We encourage you to take a stab at it. You can do so through a single pay per request system. It costs $5. You don't have to sign up for some big ass subscription until you want to. You don't have to go out and buy a bunch of crap. It doesn't matter. It costs $5. $5 to see if we're actually filling you full of BS or if we mean what we say. Obviously, your risk management has a lot to do with it. These are numbers we stand by, and we really look forward to you being one of our, soon to be community members. Come and trade with confidence. That's my whole pitch here. So 75% just for us to start the conversation. And on ETH signals, OMFG. So we've had this one on our radar for a long time now. Invalid at 13. There's too much of a range for me to really care right now. It's just a 50-50 as it stands, although I will sell some of my spot I bought around. I didn't get a perfect entry. I got like 15 or something like that. 4 hour. So initially, if I'm looking just as a trader, after I just went through that big old, oh my God, 75%, I'm looking at this and I'm saying, even with 75%, 2% trading delta, as I'm looking at these take profit ranges, that's how much money you stand to make if you get the entry to take profit level. That's not a huge range. That's a, you need to apply some leverage range for me. That will adjust your risk, all that good stuff, all that fun stuff. Let's look at the 1 hour. Ooh, we're on a 15 minute. 17 to 17.9. Still probably a leverage trade. 3 to 5. You get out a little bit. Where are we at? So 17.4, 17.2. 17.5. 17.2. Yeah, so the 1 hour signals are basically starting that range for the 4 hour signals. Still a fairly tight, profit. 1851. It's a lot of really tight profits for me personally. If you're, let me just see. Oh, sorry. 71. Still pretty wild. Whew, look at those 15 minutes. Holy shit. All right. Putting on a different hat. Ironically, I only wear hats on this stream because I can never get my hair to look right. Let's see what the 15 minutes got. This is a leverage thing. This is a short And then the 15 minutes a little bit above that. How do you manage your risk with such a short profit margin? If you assumably put a 10x leverage on there to increase that to a 15% trading delta, you need to assume the same for your risk to reward as it comes to your stop loss. That will obviously be maximized because you're trading on leverage. You can actualize losses on leveraged positions much more quickly, and so your R&R needs to be calculated in advance. It doesn't really change anything, but you need to know your leverage you're going to apply, your assumed trading profit you stand to make from a percentage basis. Let's just make it easy. Say you do a 10x, you now have a 15.6% trading delta on your hands. And what amount of your trading capital are you willing to lose with that specified leverage in order to get the take profit? Generally speaking, I run my stops tight on leverage stuff. I would add to a position at this range. I would start building a short position pretty close to where we are now. And where it's the invalid at 17.94. So leading down to that. When you get to these types, anything like a 10x on that, man, I really think you're dancing with danger personally. But could you do it? Yeah, you could. Are you willing to do a 1-to-1 with a 10x leverage? Pretty ballsy. I'd probably do a 1-to-2, personally. And at the same point in time, you need to go through and do the same assumptions or conversations that you're doing with these signals. Look, 1750, but we have an additional signal right below it. If I do a 1-to-1 on this spot, is that going to interfere? Am I going to have to hit my stop loss before I hit this take entry? I will usually, if it's like a fairly healthy range, will split my orders up, 50% and 50%. If all of it doesn't fill and I only get 50% of my trade right here, but I still get the profit I was shooting for, right on. If it goes further, if it does not interfere with whatever my risk management is, and if I get this additional entry, either via hitting a stop loss and reallocating or from adding to the capital, cool. No big deal. Everything is as I wanted it to be. So I would look at this right here, though, personally. That 17.19, that trading range is fatter for me. You could do a 25% into the trade right here. I wouldn't set a stop loss if it's so tight and you're expecting to hit some of those lower ranges. That's when it can get a little bit hard. If you're not hitting a stop loss, you're saying a couple of things. Hey, F you, stop loss hunters. Also, two, I'm ready if we hit that lower range. I'm good. And you just need to manage your risk up front. I like these signals. I don't like those ranges. Personally, but I like the damn hit rate we got. So if we get to this signal right here, I will open up a 10x short at 1860. That's 10x short territory for me. That's 15%. On the radar, I'm probably going to do like a 1-to-1.5. I'll lose 10% of the trade to make the 15. That's a clean trade. It's a trade with an 80% probability of winning too. Thank you, Thor. So that's pretty much it for me. This is at least like my Monday macro overview of the markets, always starting with Bitcoin, generally flowing into Solana. The big thing here is that all of what I talk about, you can learn how to do on your own at any point in time, on any asset, on any strategy that you have. All I'm doing is learning how to use our tool called Thor. If you'd like to learn more, visit taptrade.io. Join our Telegram, join our Discord, start by looking at the data, start by asking the people who are using Thor what their experiences are with it, or start by having your own experiences through the Ask Thor system at taptrade.io/Thor. You can find access to stock signals, Forex signals, any meme coin on Solana, and all of the available cryptocurrencies that we have there. Try it out. That's it. If you want to help yourself, it's a very powerful tool to have in your tool belt. It's not a crystal ball, but I will say it has changed my life personally. It's changed a lot of lives for our community that's existing. And we look forward to showing you more about our automated services at Hyperliquid, at the vaulting systems under Tap Trade, and also our Solana-based trading contracts. We have them currently closed for deposit right now, although Solana USDC and Solana Bitcoin Automated Trading Vault will come back very soon. So I appreciate y'all. Thanks for joining.